Good morning and welcome to The Art of Composition. Thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it. So today I want to continue on with my video lecture series, Closing the Gap Between Photography and Art. And this is part 2. I want to look at an Anna Rosa Bain painting and a Vladimir Spirov photograph. But I'll start with the painting. It's not a subject that I would normally pick for a video lecture, but I thought maybe I'd mix it up a little bit. Obviously it's a painting of a dog, but the other reason I want to look at an Anna Rosa Bain painting is because I came across a really good video of hers this morning on her website, and I shared it out. You can find it on my art highlights page. It's basically a presentation on how she became an artist, how she started out from when she was very young until where she's at now. You know, being a mother, I believe she has 2 kids. So it was really an interesting video and definitely worth sharing out. Check it out. I'm a huge fan of her work, but what I want to do is I want to demonstrate again today how the photographer can use the same design principles that the artist does on the canvas, and I'll start with this painting of a dog. So what you see on my screen is the same painting with the harmonic armature drawn out, and you'll notice right away how some of these diagonal lines are coming into play. For example, you have this diagonal line here following the nose, and then this strong diagonal line here following the angle in the mouth, and so on. But what I'm going to do is just drop a few lines and show you how the subject's being locked into place, and then I'll highlight them in yellow. So let me get started. Remember, wherever you have 2 or more diagonal lines that intersect, you can drop horizontal and vertical lines. So right at this point here, which frames in the left side of the dog portrait, locks that side in here because of these intersecting diagonal lines at that point, right? You have a horizontal line right here which locks in the bottom of the mouth. You have this diagonal line being played out at that point. If I bring this all the way over, and I'll bring this section over here as well, you can drop a few more lines, but let me continue on here. You can drop a vertical right here at this point between the dark shadows and the white area at that point, and I'll bring that to there. And I just want to see if there's anything else. Also notice here too how these diagonal lines are framing in this area here as well as this area here. If I drop a horizontal line right here where these diagonal lines intersect and bring this all the way over, I can then drop another vertical where this diagonal meets this horizontal. At that point, it frames in the right hand side, and then if I bring that all the way up, I can then frame in, drop a horizontal where this vertical meets that diagonal line and frames in the top of the head. So basically what I've done is I framed in the entire subject, and then I'm going to highlight these in yellow just so it stands out a little bit. And let me draw these out here. Let me thicken that up just a little bit. You have this diagonal line framing in. You have, again, this vertical. At that point, you have this diagonal line, remember, in the nose. At that point, you have this diagonal line being emphasized in the mouth. You have that horizontal line framing in the bottom of the mouth at that point. You also have this diagonal line being played out right here. You have this division, this vertical. Remember where the contrast and the shading and the highlight. You have this diagonal line being played out here. And you have this diagonal line on left-hand side framing in this area here. And then you have this diagonal line framing in this section there. And you have, of course, this vertical right there. So you can see how everything is framed in. And you have this diagonal line being played here. And you have this horizontal line right across the nose. If I could draw it, that would be great at that point. So with just a few lines, the artist has framed in the subject. The subject does not matter, by the way. And that's one reason. That's another reason I picked this painting. Because normally I do portraits or figures or whatever, but it's important to understand it doesn't matter what your subject matter is. All the design principles still apply. Okay, so you can tell just from a few lines, and then I can get rid of these lines to demonstrate that even a little bit more of how the subject's being framed in with just a few lines. And again, you don't need hundreds or thousands of lines to demonstrate this effectively, a problem that I see in dynamic symmetry a lot. There you have it. Your subject's framed in. A few diagonal lines are being emphasized, and they're coming from the harmonic armature, verticals and horizontals. All right, so let me go to the photograph by Vladimir Spirov. All right, so this is a photograph by Vladimir, and I've been working with him for a few weeks now. He's using the design principles that I have on my website, and I asked him, I said, how hard is this stuff to learn, with my video lectures? And he's like, it's very easy. And I agree. Learning the harmonic armature is definitely much easier in dynamic symmetry. You can apply it and learn it at a much quicker rate. He's only been studying this information, I think, for a few weeks. And what it does, for the photographer, it allows them, they can shoot a series of images and go back in post-processing and lay the grid on top of it to crop it, so you have a better design if that's necessary. Or if you do street photography, you can generally, what I recommend is street photographers shoot a lot of film or digital images and then go back and evaluate them. And you can use the armature for that and then select the best one that meets your criteria for subject matter, but also design as well. It doesn't matter how you end up with a good design, and that's my point. It just doesn't matter when it comes to photography. Like I said, if you crop, you shoot a lot, it doesn't matter. You just have to end up with a good design. And a lot of these photographs that I use in the demonstrations fit the armature quite well. So let me show you what I mean by that. All right, so here's the same photograph with the armature drawn out, and right away you can see some of these diagonal lines coming into play. You have it right here in the side of the face. On this side and that side, you have this diagonal line being played out in the hat, but you also have divisions being locked into, and I'll show you what I mean. If I drop a vertical again where these two diagonal lines intersect, it locks the arm in that position. I can drop another one here. I can drop another one at this point. And then you also have one being played out right at this point. You have this diagonal line being played out here with the hand. You also have a short vertical at this point there. Again, just a few lines. You don't need a lot of lines dropped down to frame in your subject. And let me change this to yellow like I did the painting by Anna Rose Bain, and point that out. You have this vertical here, framing in the left-hand side. You have these two verticals doing the same on the right-hand side. So I've locked my subject into that position. I have this diagonal line in the hand, right? You have these diagonal lines in the face, as I mentioned. One here, one here. You have the diagonal line in the hat, and you have one right here. And all of these diagonal lines are giving direction. They're enclosing the subject. You have a division here. So you've locked these elements into place. You have a diagonal line being played out, enclosing this side as well. You have this vertical running right here. So your subject is locked in a place in the frame that has a relationship with the harmonic armature. You can use the diagonal lines. You can use horizontal and vertical divisions. Again, it doesn't matter how you arrive here when it comes to photography. You just have to come out with a good composition. That's going to be it for today. I hope this makes sense. Thanks for joining me.